right, tonight's speaker is Joellen Lampman. She's a community IPM, which is Integrated Pest Management, extension educator, and you said not with New York State IPM program anymore, but just at Cornell. She has a bachelor's in natural resources from Cornell and a master's in communication from Stony Brook. Joellen is a lifelong environmental education, a lifelong environmental educator. So with that, you've already started to share your screen, and she's going to tell us everything we wanted to know about ticks. All right, thanks, Joellen. Oh, you know what? You're muted. Joellen?
Okay, here we go. That's better. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I am an environmental educator. I spent most of my life working with environmental organizations and helping people to connect to the environment. And then I made this move to Cornell University where I'm really talking a lot about the stuff that we don't want to hear about, like ticks and bed bugs and invasive species. But I actually, I love my job, but I also love this aspect of talking about ticks because people are starting to be afraid to go outdoors. And we really need people to be out there and learning about the environment so that they want to protect it. So I am here to provide some guidance on how you can absolutely still enjoy our beautiful environment, but also keep yourself safe. So I am going to talk today about ticks, and you're going to learn more about ticks than you ever thought you wanted to know. And then we're going to spend time talking about how to not get bit, how to prevent those bites through integrated pest management. And then we'll spend a little bit extra time talking about the proper removal of embedded ticks, because that's where a lot of misinformation and sometimes dangerous misinformation is passed on. So we'll talk about that. But by the end of this, what I absolutely want you to know is that you just do not want to get bitten by a tick. And I'm going to give you reasons for that and then solutions for how you can avoid it. So in case you're not familiar, integrated pest management is basically this philosophy of how to approach pest issues. And I really like this Swiss cheese model. What this Swiss cheese model tells us is that you can have a strategy that's going to help to slow down pests, stop many of them, but there's nothing out there that's going to work all the time. And just pick your pest, it doesn't matter. But what this model also shows is that the more strategies that you layer in, that you include in your protection strategies, the more likely you are to stop the harm that or the damage that the pest can cause. So the very first slice of cheese, if you will, is knowledge. So let's get into knowing your pest. So there's like almost 1,000 ticks that are out there across the globe. Within New York State, there's about 30 species. Most of them we're not going to see because they're going to specialize on certain animals. They're only going to be found in those nests or in those dens. Now, there are 5 in New York State that we consider to be a risk to humans, companion animals, and to livestock. And so we're going to very briefly talk about some of these. And these are not distributed evenly across New York State. So here's a map of New York. And it's showing that if you're down on Long Island, you've got all 5 of those species. And as you move farther north up the Hudson Valley, they start to drop off. They're not all throughout all of New York. And once we get up to the mid-Hudson and most of upstate, it's only the black-legged tick and the dog tick. And then there's really one wonky little population of Lone Star ticks in the Rochester area. So let's talk about these individual ticks a little bit. So the Gulf Coast tick is not here in the capital region yet. This one is what we would consider to be a climate migrant. It has been moving north slowly with our warming winters, and it reached New York 2 years ago. And we're finding pretty good populations of them on Staten Island and parts of Long Island. We're not quite sure how far this one is going to enter into upstate New York. So we're keeping an eye on it. This one likes tall grass areas, and it's going to feed on a wide variety of different types of animals. At this point, like I said, we're just watching what it's going to do and how long it's going to take to get to this area. Another newish arrival is the Asian longhorn tick. This one was discovered in New Jersey in 2017. And now we know that it's in 22 states, 16 counties in New York. It's found in woods, fields, and lawns, and it likes to feed on deer, medium-sized mammals, and it really, really likes livestock, especially cattle. Thankfully, for our standpoint, it's not particularly fond of humans. There are cases of them biting, but for the most part, this is going to be a cattle problem, and it's one that we're watching really carefully. You will notice here, I have an adult and then two smaller life stages. I only have one adult shown here because she can clone herself. As long as she gets her blood meals, she can lay 2,000 eggs that are all females. And as long as they can get their blood meals, they're laying 2,000 eggs. So these numbers can ramp up really, really quickly. They have not yet been found in Albany County or Schenectady County, but we expect that to change. Right now, we know as far north as they have been found is Ulster County. We have populations there that are, thriving. So again, this is one we're watching really carefully. The Lone Star tick, this is another one that has been, their populations have been growing with our warming winters, but they are firmly established on Long Island. They're moving up the Hudson Valley. This map that I'm showing from the CDC is showing it throughout the bottom half of New York State, including Schenectady County. The Department of Health for New York State does not recognize that there's populations that are above New York City. I feel like both of these wonderful organizations are incorrect. We will find them throughout all of New York, but we won't find them in breeding populations because they'll get dropped off of migrating birds. So we've found them almost throughout all of New York State, but they're like one-offs. They're not breeding. They don't have these huge populations. So it is something that you might find. They are moving farther north. When they get to the Pine Barrens, they're really going to love it there, but they're not there yet. They are more aggressive biters. Their legs are a little bit longer and they're faster and they'll actually chase people down. Their favorite hosts are deer and turkey, but they're also going to get onto a bunch of different other types of wildlife, our dogs and us. Now, the American dog tick, this is the one that we all grew up with. It's been around. We're all familiar with it. When we were growing up and we were being told where to avoid ticks, we were told to avoid the tall grass. And that's because that's where this one really likes to be. Only the adults will get onto us and feed. So they're relatively easy to find. And they really love to embed along the base of the hairline. And when they're large, when they're fully engorged, they're about the size of a grape. So they have that ick factor. They can carry some diseases, but those are pretty rare in New York. So this is almost the golden retriever of the ticks, that they're kind of goofy and, the chance of being killed by a golden retriever is low, but never zero. So that's kind of the way that I think about the American dog tick. The one that we're most concerned about, and I'm going to spend most of my time talking about, is the black-legged tick, also known as the deer tick. This one is also our smallest tick, which makes it harder to find, which in itself makes it more dangerous. This one needs higher humidity than the other ticks, so it's also more restricted in where we would find it. It needs humidity. It's like 85% or higher for it to really be thriving and out there looking for something to feed on. So where we find it is going to be more restricted than with our other ticks that I've talked about. And they will feed on a lot of different things. They have a very Catholic diet. They're found on over 120 hosts nationwide, 27 most often within New York State. So no matter what type of species we're talking about, they are all relatively small. So from left to right, on the left-hand side, we've got the larva. This is what comes out of the egg, and it almost fits in the groove of a fingerprint. It's just really, really tiny. The next stage over is the nymph. This is the side of a poppy seed right there. And it is active right now. These are out in large numbers. And then continuing to the right, we have the male adult and the female adult, which is the largest one. And for scale, she's about the size of an apple seed. What else do we know about ticks? They are all blood-feeding ectoparasites. And what that means is that they stay on the outside of the body and they feed from outside. So one of the myths out there, you will have heard that they will bury completely underneath the skin, and they absolutely do not do that. They will just insert their mouth parts inside with the rest of the body remaining outside. What they are is incredibly stealthy. They're small, which helps. They also have really tiny feet. And when they are crawling, they're actually crawling on their toes. Some people tell me they can always feel ticks crawling up them. Please don't let that be your only means of protecting yourself from tick bites, because it's just not effective. These guys are really, really good at what they do, and they're sneaky. Those legs are made for clinging and for climbing. So they're not jumping. They don't have wings, so they're not flying. And they're not using their energy to walk to the base of a tree, climb up the trunk, walk out onto a branch, and then wait for something to walk underneath them so that they can drop down. They don't have the sense organs to know if something is underneath them. What they do, how they hunt, is what we call questing. And they do this by, with their back legs, they're grabbing onto vegetation, and their front legs are out and they're waving in the air, because this is where their sense organs is, right at the end of their front legs. And that sense organ is picking up heat and carbon dioxide and what I affectionately call feet smell. And when it senses those things, it gets itself ready, and then it's going to grab on, and then it's going to start to climb up. So most of the time, this is happening shin height or even below. Think ankle height. And this is important because it's going to help us to figure out why some of the strategies I'm going to talk about later are going to work. It starts really low, and then it's going to work its way up, and it's aiming for the dark, warm, moist places of the body, because that's where it's, one, going to be most protected and least likely to get discharged or scratched off. So lone stars, I mentioned, are a little bit different. They're more aggressive hunters. They will actually follow carbon dioxide trails. The females will also lay 8,000 eggs at a time. So if you have an area where a lot of females have dropped and have laid their eggs, you can hit what's called a tick bomb. So this is down on Long Island. This is my leg. I was out there actually looking for ticks. So this was expected. Between the front of my leg, the back of my leg, both legs, I probably had about 10,000 ticks on me that day. It's disconcerting, but again, we can do these things. We can protect ourselves so that we don't get bit by them. Both lone stars and those Asian longhorn ticks will form what we call tick bombs, where they'll also clump together and wait for something to walk by. So you're not going to pick up just one at a time. You can pick up hundreds, if not thousands at a time. What else do we know about ticks? They're committed. So this is a wonderful diagram from Tick Encounter, which is out of the University of Rhode Island, that shows ticks from the time that they're unfed to when they're fully engorged. And that can take 7 days when it comes to adult black-legged ticks. The younger life stages won't feed for as long because they have smaller bodies. Dog ticks can feed for even longer because they have larger bodies and it can take longer for them to fill up. But you can see that as the days goes on, it gets larger and larger and larger. And this is really important for when your healthcare provider asks you, how long was the tick attached? Now, personally, I would really love for that question never to be asked again, because I think psychologically we can't accept that it's attached for longer than 40 minutes. But indeed, they are attached for the long haul in those dark, warm, moist places of the body where we don't easily see them or find them unless we're looking for them. Part of what allows them to do this are these amazing mouth parts. So we want to think about the mouth part as a straw with these backward barbs on them that prevents them from being accidentally discharged. And not only do we have this mouth part, but we also have it spitting into us. It's releasing saliva. And in that saliva is a cementing agent that makes sure that it's really glued in there, again, to prevent it from being discharged during the 7 days it can take for it to be fully engorged with the blood meal. It's also spitting in a painkiller so you don't feel all this nonsense going on, an antihistamine so that you don't get an allergic reaction to it, anticoagulant so the blood keeps flowing for that entire week. There's actually about 1,000 different chemicals within tick spit, most of which we don't know what it does. What I can assure you is that you don't want it in you. So this is reason number one that you do not want to get bit by a tick. When we get to talking about removal of a tick, we'll be talking about different strategies that people tell you that you need to do so that you don't leave the head behind. Now, when this tick gets inserted, it is only inserting into the base of this of the mouth parts. That's it. So the head isn't getting inserted. If while you're removing the tick, the mouth part breaks off, it is no more dangerous than a splinter. So we don't need to worry as much about leaving the mouth part behind. We're certainly not leaving the head behind because it never gets inserted. All right, what else do we know? Ticks need hosts. Like I said, there's like 27 things in New York that they really love to feed on. Not all hosts are created equal. Some have gotten great reputations as being tick vacuum cleaners. They're just going to go out and eat all the ticks. And that includes things like the possum and guinea hens or chickens. And I'm here to tell you that those aren't true. For the guinea hens and the chickens, that came from research that was done in Africa, where they were looking at a tick that fed pretty much exclusively on cattle. So when they released the chickens in there, they found that they ate enough ticks that it really made a difference. So it was a good strategy. Here in the United States, with our particular ticks, all of the 5 that I'm talking about are just as happy to get onto and feed on chickens and guinea hens as they are almost anything else. So yes, will they find some ticks and eat them? They will find the adults. Are they going to find the poppy seed-sized nymphs? Probably not. Are they going to find the larva that fits in the groove of a fingerprint? Absolutely not. So very recent research has shown that if we have chickens or guinea hens, we're actually going to end up with more ticks than if we didn't have them. So if you want chickens, get chickens. It's not to the point where it would increase your tick population to the point that it would impact your health, but don't get them to protect yourself from the ticks because that just does not work. Now, some hosts are worse than others, and the white-footed mice is one of the ones that are of great concern. Now, as an IPM educator, I can tell you how to keep these guys out of your house. I cannot tell you how to keep them out of your backyard because they love to be where people are. And we've simplified our environments so that we have gotten rid of a lot of their competitors, and we've also gotten rid of a lot of the things that eat them. So mice will just be where people are. Now they have very fast life stages, so a lot of the diseases that impact us are not going to impact the mice because they just don't live long enough for that. And they have these wonderful big ears that the ticks just love to feed on. So those larvae and the nymphs, this is their favorite host. There's a lot of them out there, and they're more likely to find one of those before something else walks across their path. And in New York, and especially in this area, 85 to 95% of the mice are carrying the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. 50% of the mice are carrying 3 diseases or more. So whenever the tick feeds on a mouse, it's getting the bacteria, and then it's going to be bringing that and transmitting it to the next host. Another animal that has a big role in ticks is the white-tailed deer. Also, great big ears. Ticks love to be on them. This is the favorite host for the adults of most of the species of ticks that we're talking about, because they can get a really good solid blood meal from them. I like to think of deer as the cruise ships for the ticks. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet. There is plenty of room at that table. They're also, as adults, looking to mate. So they're looking for a hookup. So on a larger animal, you're more likely to find a tick of the opposite sex in order to mate. And deer also have large ranges. So they are tick dispersal systems. They're dropping ticks off as they go. Our populations of deer have been going up, which has also contributed to the number of ticks that we have and to the expansion of their ranges throughout the years. All right, ticks also have preferred habitats. I mentioned earlier that growing up, we heard that they really like to be in the tall grass areas. And yes, we will find the American dog tick, the Asian longhorn tick, and the Lone Star tick there, and the Gulf Coast tick. I got to add that to the slide. The Lone Star ticks and the Asian longhorn ticks, they're less fussy. We can find them in the woods along the edge. We can also find them in lawn areas. The black-legged ticks, we're mostly going to find in the woodland areas or in moister, more humid, tall grass areas. But we can also find them in lawns. I did a research study looking at whether mulch mowing would make a difference in terms of tick populations. And over the course of 4 years, I found 63 ticks, which was not enough to answer my research question. But I can tell you that I found 63 ticks in the middle of high-end Westchester lawns, some of which had actually been treated for ticks. So what this slide, what I really want to get across is there's really nowhere that you are completely safe from ticks. If you walk out your door, you should consider yourself to be in tick territory. And there's been a couple of studies that have borne this out. So there was a study that was done in Monmouth County, Maryland, and one that was done in Connecticut. And the numbers actually came back very similar, which is amazing for a research project like this. And they asked people where they picked up the tick. And you can see from this chart that most people picked it up in their own backyards. So oftentimes we think if we're going to go to Thatcher Park, that's where we're going to pick up a tick. Now these surveys didn't look at the why. So my theory as to the why people are picking it up at home as opposed to in the park is that if you're going to go to a park, you're more likely to protect yourself from mosquitoes and ticks and therefore reduce the likelihood of picking one up. Whereas if you're home and you're going to go pick a tomato or play with the dog or play with the kids, it's less likely that you're going to do what you need to do to protect yourself. So here's my call that we just need to always be prepared to have that tick encounter. Here's a great example. This is actually down in Rockland County. This is at a state park, and my colleague and I were just getting to our car, which was parked up here. So we just walked across this island, which is not attached to the woods, and we ran into a tick bomb. So between the two of us, we had about 5,000 ticks on us. They can be pretty much anywhere, and this is just a hot, isolated, gets a lot of sun area, but they were there. The other thing about ticks is that they're seasonal. So a lot of people still believe that they are a summer issue. When we're talking about black-legged ticks, it's not so clear cut. So the eggs have been laid in the springtime, and in a couple of months, July, early August, the larvae are going to hatch out of the eggs. So these are those teeny tiny larvae that can fit in the groove of the fingerprint. They're going to look for something to feed on. They're so tiny, they're not moving very far. They're waiting for something to come to it, most likely going to be a small rodent. They're going to get on, they're going to feed for 2 or 3 days, then they're going to drop off. And they're going to wait the rest of the summer, all of the fall, all of the winter. And in the springtime is when that poppy seed sized nymph comes out. And they are out now in large numbers. They're now looking for something to feed on. Most likely it's going to be a small rodent that's going to cross their path. They're going to grab on, they're going to feed for a few days. They're going to drop off. They're going to wait the rest of the spring, all of the summer, and most of the fall. And at about the time that the deer start rutting, they're running around, you really need to watch that you're not going to hit them with your car. That's when the adults come out. Now they're looking for something larger to feed on. They're going to feed for up to a week. Then they're going to drop off. They're going to wait the rest of the fall, all of the winter, and then the springtime, the female is going to lay her eggs. Now, this is what the books say. In reality, it is a hot mess because they're incredibly good at what they do. They can hang on to their energy. If it's too dry, they're just going to wait until, things start to moisten up a little bit. So if we have a really incredibly dry spring, I've had the nymphs emerging in late June, July, as opposed to May and early June. So really, there's no time that we are completely safe from the black-legged tick. And then if we add the other ticks in, there's a lot of information on this slide. Mainly what I just want to be able to demonstrate here is that there is no time of year where you are completely safe from ticks. Now, here we are, it's mid-May. This is the worst month because all of the ticks are out there looking for something to feed on. So this is a great time to have this presentation. This is a great time to develop these habits of being able to protect ourselves from ticks and continue it through the rest of the year. Now, I'm going to try to convince you that there is nowhere that you're completely safe from ticks, and there's no when that you are completely safe from ticks. And this is actually good news. The reason that I'm going to say that this is good news is that I'm going to take a burden off of your shoulder. You no longer need to ask yourself, do I need to protect myself from ticks today? The answer is yes. So you don't even need to ask the question. We're going to do the strategies, make it part of our daily routine to protect ourselves from ticks. Now, having something that's going to feed on you for up to a week is awful enough, but then we also have these pathogens that we need to worry about. So the larva is going to be looking for something to feed on, and for the most part, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, they're going to hatch out without any diseases. They're going to get the disease from their first blood meal. So if its first blood meal is a mouse, 90% of them are carrying Lyme disease. It's almost a surety that that larva is going to become infected with Lyme and bring it to the nymph stage where it's going to feed again. Now, if the first one had a disease or more, and the second one did it, when the tick feeds, it's going to transmit that pathogen during the blood meal to the second host. If the first host didn't have a disease, when that nymph feeds, it now has a second opportunity to pick up a pathogen from the host. So the nymphs have fed once, the adults feed twice. So they are twice as likely, for the most part, they're twice as likely to be carrying a disease than the nymph is. Having said that, we consider the nymph to be the most dangerous life stage because it's the size of a poppy seed, because it comes out in early spring when people aren't thinking about ticks yet. So most people are going to get diagnosed with Lyme disease in June and July from the tick that bit them in May or June. And Lyme is a reportable disease. And this is a chart from the Center for Disease Control showing that. So even though the adults that are active in October and November are twice as likely to be carrying the disease, the rates of infection are really low because now it's cooling off, we're wearing more clothes, they're larger, we're more likely to find them. It's that poppy seed sized nymphs that really we need to worry about. And this issue is just getting worse. This is a map showing the expansion over the years. So started with 21, here's 2016, and 2019 is the last date that I have from the CDC. And you can see that Lyme disease is now found throughout the entire state. I do want to point out that Massachusetts has not figured out how to get rid of Lyme disease. They were just reporting it in a way that the CDC didn't recognize. So don't think you're going to move to Massachusetts and be safe, because that's also would be a solid blue state. And it's not just Lyme disease. We've got hard tick relapsing fever found throughout most of the state. Anaplasmosis, we're ground zero. Babesiosis, also ground zero. And Powassan virus. Powassan virus is one of those exceptions where it can be transmitted from an infected female through the eggs to that teeny tiny larva and be transmitted. Now, thankfully, it's a relatively rare disease. There's only about 5 cases every year within New York State. The issue with Powassan virus is that it's a virus, so there is no cure. And for people that develop symptoms, it is fatal 12% of the time. Something else about these diseases is that most of them are going to live in that tick's gut. And because the tick's not going to feed for maybe 9 months, it goes dormant. So when the tick starts to feed and the blood hits the gut, that wakes up the pathogens. They start to multiply, they start to move through the tick body until they get to the salivary glands and then get spit into their host. We don't know how long that takes. For Lyme, you've heard different numbers. The shortest amount of time that I've read is 16 hours. Some people are saying up to 72. Powassan virus lives throughout the entire tick body. So it can start getting transmitted immediately upon the tick becoming attached. So here we have our first potentially fatal tick-borne disease that can get transmitted immediately. You really, really don't want to get bit by a tick. And this is just black-legged ticks. Now we look at the other ticks, and they have their own cadre of pathogens that they could pass along. If I have it highlighted in green, that means this is 2025 information. This list is expanding all the time. If it's in yellow, this was 2024 information. So like with Lone Star ticks, we have Heartland virus and Bourbon virus that we now know is present on Long Island. We now know that Powassan virus can be transmitted not only by the black-legged tick, but also by Lone Star's dog ticks and the longhorn tick. And then there's this alpha-gal allergy. So alpha-gal is a very short form for a much longer named carbohydrate that is found in all mammals except for primates, which we are. And it's in the saliva, mostly of the Lone Star tick, but now we know it's also in low doses in the black-legged tick. So when the tick feeds on us, this is one of the things that gets spit in, and we can become sensitized to this carbohydrate, which means that the next time that we have a hamburger or a steak, we can have an allergic reaction to it. And just like bee stings, every time you have that exposure, it can get worse and worse with the possibility of anaphylactic shock and actual death. Now, I have young adult sons. When I talk to them about ticks, I get it'll be fine, Mom. I'll be fine. I'm going to go on the antibiotics if I get Lyme disease. You worry too much. You know the type. When I tell them about alpha-gal allergy and that they might not be able to have a hot dog for the rest of their life, this gets their attention. So when you are hopefully telling people about this presentation, please tell them about alpha-gal allergy because it motivates people to really not want to get bit by a tick. The New York State Department of Health has been doing tick collections since 2008. They started in Schenectady in 2010, and they've been collecting black-legged ticks and testing them to see what percentage of the ticks are carrying these different diseases. So from 2010 to 2023, for the adult ticks, over half of the adults have been carrying Lyme disease. With 1 year, 62% of the ticks that they had collected were carrying it. For anaplasmosis, the average of over those 13 years was 8.5, but 1 year it was 22%. Babesiosis, 5.6. The hard tick relapsing fever, about 1% are carrying this. If we look at the nymphs, we can see that those numbers are much lower for the reason that I provided, that they've only had one blood meal. But these are still larger numbers. You're more likely to be bit by nymphs. You're more likely to be bit by multiple nymphs, which increases your chances of getting these different diseases. So this is definitely a concern within Schenectady County. You just don't want to get bit by a tick. There is a lab in Syracuse that has been collecting ticks. People have been sending them to them, and they're testing them for diseases because they want to map out where the diseases are within New York. And I was following them on social media, and one day they posted this where they had a single female black-legged tick that came on that was carrying the pathogens for Lyme disease and Powassan virus and anaplasmosis and babesiosis. So getting bit by a tick might mean you might get one disease. It might mean you can get multiple diseases. Again, you just don't want to get bit by a tick. So hopefully at this point, I have convinced you that you don't want to get bit. I like this term healthy paranoia because I want you to be thinking about ticks every time you walk outside your door. But I also want you to be healthy about it because there's also health consequences to never walking outside your door. So yes, think about it. Hopefully you're motivated to take the steps that I'm going to go into now, but we also need to balance this with, we live in a beautiful part of the state and we want to take advantage of that. So here we go from to you got this. We can do this. So I just want to remind you of the Swiss cheese model. A lot of things I'm going to tell you from this on out, you've heard it before. I'm probably not going to be telling you anything new. Hopefully I've provided the background for why these things will work. But just want to reinforce that the more of these things that you put into your strategy, the more protected you are from that tick bite. So first one, they paid me to say this. Avoid tick areas. What's the fun in that? This is where the great stuff happens. So this is a strategy that you can do. But even being outside, there are other strategies that you can use to protect yourself. So let's remind ourselves of how the ticks are hunting. They're questing. They're on vegetation and they're got their legs stuck out and they're waiting for you to grab onto. So if we're going to go for a walk, we can pick our trail. Trails that are wide and vegetation free are going to protect you from these ticks because they're not jumping, they're not flying, they're not going to be able to get on you if you stay in the middle of that trail. So here we are. This is pretty darn tick safe. If you find a trail like that, stay in the middle of it, then you're going to be able to come out of that walk tick free. As we move to the right, it becomes harder to be able to go along this path without brushing up against vegetation until we get to this trail here. And there is no way you're on that trail without actually brushing up against something. Now, this trail goes to my favorite trout hole. So I am not going on that trail because of ticks. I'm going to put other strategies into place. One of my favorite activities in the springtime is also going out and taking pictures of spring ephemerals. So I am in the middle of the woods, lying on my stomach with my camera, taking these pictures. If you can think of a more tick risky activity, please let me know. But I can assure you that I do this with the strategies I'm going to be talking about, knowing that I will remain tick free. So one of the ways I'm going to do this is I'm going to dress to exclude. And so again, this is something that you've heard. We're going to wear the long pants. We're wearing the long sleeves. We're going to wear light colored clothing because, as you can see, that nymph crawling on the cloth, you can see it. They're not moving particularly fast. They're not moving particularly slow. So if you're paying attention, that movement can catch your eye. So that's a strategy that you can use. I also want you to tuck your pants into your socks. And the reason for that is that most of the ticks are going to get on you shoe, ankle height. And if your pants aren't tucked in, the ticks are just going to crawl up on the inside of your pants, aiming for the warm, dark, moist places of the body. Use your imagination. When we tuck our pants into our socks, now they can't be on the inside of the pants. They have to stay on the outside. And if our shirts are also tucked in, then they have to keep crawling up. And it's not until they get up to here that they're actually reaching skin. And this is an area of the body that's just a lot easier to look for ticks than some of the more complicated parts of the body farther south. Rubber boots are not going to help. They are able to walk up and down rubber really easily. So what I've shown here on the left is we took an old pair of socks, cut off the feet, and we have put that over the top of the boot so that the ticks can't climb up and then go back down inside the boot. They have to keep climbing up. Over here, this was a COVID find for me. I was very excited because I had not worn shorts for years because of ticks, even in the heat of summer. But these are mesh pants. They're called mosquito netting pants, and they look like giant sweatpants, and you just pull them up over your whatever you're wearing. And as long as you have those tucked in, the ticks can't get onto your body, and they have to keep crawling up to areas that are just easier for you to see. So excluding them, not allowing them access to your skin is a really important strategy when we're talking about avoiding tick bites. Let's up our game a little bit. Add repellents. Repellents interfere with their ability to sense you. They're interfering with its ability to pick up the carbon dioxide, heat, and feet smell. So if they don't sense you, they're not ready when you brush by, making it less likely that one is going to get onto you. Now, there's different products that are out there. There are 4 that have been proven to be effective against ticks. And those are DEET, upon which all repellents are compared. We have picaridin, IR 3535, which is the active ingredient in Skin So Soft, and oil of lemon eucalyptus. Now, all of these are going to be effective for different amounts of time. The percentages on DEET and picaridin are going to determine how long it's going to last on you. It's really important to read the instructions on the repellent bottle and make sure that you follow those instructions. So all of them are going to tell you keep out of reach of children. So you're not going to hand a bottle to your kid. You're going to apply it to them yourself. You're not going to spray the face. You're going to put it on your hands and then brush it onto your face. It's going to tell you to not put it on skin that you're then going to cover with clothing. Because if you cover it with clothing, that increases the chance that some might get absorbed into your body. But if you just put it on bare skin, the likelihood of it getting absorbed is very low. The EPA has a repellent finder. There is a link to that, or I'm sorry, there's the QR code. So if you have your camera, you can take a click of that. And it's going to allow you to choose. Are you looking for mosquitoes? Are you looking for ticks only? Are you looking for both? How long might you be outside? How long do you want that to last for? And then it will bring you up to a table. So I actually did a seminar just on this. It's about 10 minutes long on choosing the right repellent for you. And I go into how, it's not there's still issues with this out of 496 products that I found with DEET. 9 weren't registered for ticks at all, so they shouldn't be there. There's a glip in the matrix. And 414, most of them didn't have an hourly protection time. So I would encourage you to look for ones that do have that protection time and then see how long they last. They range from 2 to 10 hours. So if it only lasts for 2 hours and you put it on your child, that's not going to last until lunchtime. You need to find one that's going to last longer. It's also going to tell you about the percentage of active ingredient. The CDC recommends percentages of DEET between 20 and 50%. Most of these products were either way above that or way below it. So you're going to want to find that sweet spot between 20 and 50%. I recommend that you bring a magnifying glass with you to the store because the text is pretty tiny on these bottles. People always want to know about all natural products that are made with essential oils. And this was a research project that was done by the CDC that they printed out not too long ago. And again, lots of information. What I want you to get out of this is that there was not a single all natural product that they had that lasted for longer than half of an hour. So if you want to go all natural and you're willing to apply every half an hour, then you do you. I'm going to go for the longer lasting products because I don't want to get exposed to the tick saliva, the pathogens that they're carrying, or the treatments that happen if I happen to get one of these tick-borne diseases. Those are I take by mouth. I would much rather put something on the skin that is proven to work and will protect me for a longer period of time. So skin repellents. Those 4 EPA registered products do go a long way in protecting us. All right, let's up our game again. Let's remember, ticks are small. We're not putting repellents on skin that's covered by clothing. If we have those teeny tiny larvae, they can get through loose knitted cloths. So how can we protect ourselves farther? And that's with permethrin treated clothing. Now, this is one that's actually going to kill the ticks. And that's the way I like ticks that are going after me to be. I want them to be dead. So there is 2 ways that you can get permethrin treated clothing. One is the do-it-yourself method, where you go to the store, you can pick up a bottle of permethrin. Again, read those instructions, follow them carefully. They're going to tell you to take the clothes outside. You're going to spray it just until it changes color. We don't need to drench it. We're going to wait until it's completely dry. And at that point, that product has bound tightly to the cloth. And depending on which one you get, it will last for, it can last for up to 6 weeks or 6 washes, whichever comes first. Pro tip, the orange bottle and the yellow bottle will last for 6 weeks or 6 washes. The blue bottle lasts for 2 weeks. So make sure you read the instructions, go for the longer lasting one, because it's going to save you money in the long run. The other option is permethrin treated clothing that's already professionally treated, or you can send your clothing out to be treated. There's a company called Insect Shield that will do that for you. And this is supposed to last for the life of the garment, or 70 washes. And this one, you don't have to count how many times you washed it, because it just lasts. Now with this one, they do come with a label that says that you should wash it separately from your other laundry. With the do-it-yourself, there is not that caution. So you can wash it with everything else. Again, you know yourself. I know me. The likelihood of me separating my clothing is pretty low. So I'm a do-it-yourselfer. If I had young children, I would absolutely be going for the professionally treated clothing, because I don't want to have to keep track of how often I have washed those clothing. And when my kids were young, I was doing laundry all the time anyway. So it'd be very easy to only do permethrin treated clothing wash. So some people will tell me, hey, maybe I could put dog collars on my legs. Yeah, that's not going to work. Don't do that. But this is kind of that same idea. You're putting on something that's going to protect you from the kids. And research has shown that this is one of the best things you can do. So I highly encourage you to add this to the list of things that you do on a daily basis. And speaking of dog collars, don't forget your pets. People that have dogs tend to be 3 times more likely to get Lyme disease than people that don't have dogs. So there's different products out there. You do have the collars, you have the drops that you put on the back of the neck. There's ones that they can consume. Talk to your veterinarian. They know your animal the best and will provide the best recommendation for your particular pet. Here on the left, there's that poppy seed size nymph that is on the tip of my finger. I found this in my bed. It had fallen off of my cat and it was dead because of the product that I was using. So a recommendation is also don't let your pet sleep with you. But yeah, again, are we really going to do that? You can make those decisions for yourself. So when we come inside, it's a really good idea, whether your clothes are treated with permethrin or not, but to take them and to throw them into the dryer. The ticks have been known or shown through research that they can survive the wash dry cycle because there's enough moisture in there. If we put it directly into the dryer, get it to 122 degrees, they're all going to be dead, which again is the way that we like our ticks. You're going to need to test your dryer to see how long it takes to get to that. Recommendation is to get a meat thermometer, throw some towels in there, open it up, use the meat thermometer to see what the temperature is so that you can gauge the time. For most dryers, it's 15 minutes usually to get to that point. Now your clothes are tumbling around, and while that's happening, you're naked. So now is the time for you to do your thorough tick check. And the best place to do this is in the shower for 2 reasons. One is if there are any ticks that are crawling off you, if they fall off, you don't want that to happen on your bedroom carpet. Let that happen in the smooth white porcelain area, so that it's less likely that they're going to get back on you after having fallen off. Also, there's parts of our bodies we just can't see, like our backs. So if we get our hands nice and soapy and slick, we can then use our fingertips to check all those areas that we can't see, focusing on the warm, dark, moist places of the body and feel if there's something that hasn't been there before. And if we do this every day, you will know every pimple and every skin tag on your body, and it will just take a few minutes. But we do recommend that you do it every day to come up with that familiarity. So just a reminder, ticks are small. This is what we're looking for. This is a larva that I found on myself. Can you see it? It's right there. It's basically the width of a hair. But because of the daily tick check of the familiarity with my body, I was able to feel that with my fingertips and find it and remove it. And you can too. And even if you haven't been outside, we recommend that you do this tick check every single day because the tick is feeding and it's getting larger and larger, making it easier for you to find. And even if you don't find it until day 3, where if it was carrying pathogens, they've been passed on by then, this is excellent information for you to have to be able to provide to your healthcare provider. So many people get diagnosed with Lyme disease that never knew that they were bitten by a tick. So being able to know that you had one is going to provide guidance for you and your healthcare physician in case you get sick. So if one does bite you, and we want to remove it, remember, this is what we're up against. We've got that straw with backward barbs, and it is cemented in there, and it's attached to that large body, which for our purposes, we just want to think of it as a balloon filled with germs, and we don't want that deflating into us. So there's so many ways that people have talked about how to remove a tick. We're going to burn it. We're going to suffocate it. We're going to twirl it until it unscrews, and that'll mean that the head doesn't get left in. We're going to pull it out with our fingers. All of those methods have the risk of irritating the tick. And an irritated tick is a salivating tick and is pushing even more of that stuff that you don't want in your body in the first place. So we need to be very gentle with the tick. And the way to do this is with incredibly pointy tweezers. Now, I like doing this in person because then I can be handing out tick removal kits. We're doing this virtually. So I am going to be at Five Rivers tabling during their Get Outdoors and Get Together Day, which is mid-June. I think it's the 17th. I will be distributing tick removal kits there if you want one. But these are very, very pointy tweezers. I'm going to show you a video of it being removed. I hope. And you're going to see grabbing it right where the mouth part enters the skin, pulling straight up. It's glued in there, and then it finally releases. Now, at this point, you're going to put it into a plastic baggie or into a vial because you want to identify it. And the reason for that is because the different ticks will carry the different diseases. And if you need help in identification, you can bring it to your Schenectady Cooperative Extension office, or you can contact me and I'd be happy to try to identify it for you. So remember, the more things that you put into place, avoiding habitat or like trying to stop from brushing up against vegetation, dressing to exclude, using repellents on bare skin, permether treating clothing, daily tick checks, proper tick removal, the more of these things that you put into place, the more protected you are going to be. So while you do not want to get bitten by a tick, you can absolutely protect yourself. So use these strategies and go outside and enjoy our beautiful, beautiful state. I have given you a ton of information. All of this and more is on our website, don'tgettickedny.org. Thank you for your attention, and I can take questions now.
Oh, thank you so much, Joellen. If you stop sharing screen, we can see each other and people can unmute themselves and either speak up or raise your hand or any which way you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad whoever's idea it was not to have this during the annual dinner, that was the right idea.
I think we'd all agree this is the most morbidly fascinating presentation we've had.
Oh, I have to write that down. Morbidly fascinating.
Morbidly fascinating. John Assini?
Yes, thank you for a great talk. I'm going to lock my doors and windows now.
No, you got to go outside. Healthy
But
paranoia, John.
travel is an issue as well. And wondering if there's any advice you have for people who go to Europe a couple times a year.
So they also have a tick similar to our black-legged tick. They also have Lyme disease. They also have a encephalitis, which is also potentially fatal. So the good news is that all of these strategies are going to work on all of the ticks, despite what type they are. So the permethrin treated clothing, the repellents on the skin, those are going to work. If you're treat your clothes before you go. You might have an issue with the repellents going over through the plane, especially if you got a check bag. So highly recommend the permethrin treated clothing. I'm going to Long Island next week. We will be permethrined up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I have heard like I guess sorry, in some discussions I know people are kind of scared of DEET. But one thing I'm looking at that, like DEET's been in use, like wide use, like since before World War II. And I do think that if there was something like obviously to be concerned about DEET as a chemical, we probably would know by now. So I personally, yeah, I think I'm with you, Joe. I'd much rather have that risk than any of the other tick-borne diseases.
So we have these things that you put on the skin that have been tested and retested, compared to taking an antibiotic that you need to swallow. But the other thing to think about is what I was saying about the percentages. Percentages are important. There's really been no benefit shown of using more than 35%. So use that lower rate to further protect yourself. Now, personally, I use picaridin over DEET because I think it smells not as bad. So, there are choices we can make. Somebody asked about the progress in developing a Lyme disease vaccine. There is one that is being trialed. The thought that it was going to be actually available in the end of 2025, 2026. Okay. I'm really hoping that that's not going to get stalled for political reasons right now. We'll have to wait and see on that. And when it comes out, I will be the first person in line to get that vaccination. But it's just one more slice of Swiss cheese because it's not going to protect me from any of those other diseases, just Lyme. The other part of that was about the tick twister. And there's a number of devices that are out there that are using like that V shape, either a crowbar, which a tick twister looks like a little miniature crowbar. You've also got the tick key again. It's just that V, and you're supposed to get that right where the mouth part enters and then kind of using it to pry the tick out. And they work. The problem is making sure that you've got that in exactly the right place for those poppy seed sized nymphs. It's pretty easy to do that with the adults. The other issue with them is that once you've pried it out, it's kind of just hanging out there. With the tweezers, you've got it. You've got the grip on it until you actually let it go. So we really recommend the pointy tweezers for a lot of reasons. Margie.
Yes, I have a question about picaridin. My husband soaks cotton balls in picaridin and puts them in toilet paper roll tubes and around the perimeter of, we have like a 4-acre wood in the back. Are those shown to be effective at all? It's thought that the mice take the cotton balls to their nests and then help to break the cycle.
So what you're talking about are tick tubes. And if he's using picaridin, that's not going to work at all. What tick tubes are filled with is cotton that is infused with permethrin, which is actually going to kill the ticks, not picaridin, which is repelling them. Now there's two parts to that, actually three parts. So one is, let's make sure we're using the right active ingredient. The second is, please don't make your own. And I'm going to make the same pitch for not getting a bottle of permethrin that you would apply to your landscape and then diluting it. There are things that are added to the stuff that's meant to be added to fabric that causes it to bind tightly to the cloth, which is why it lasts for so very long. So please don't make your own tick tubes or make your own permethrin dilution. Get the stuff at the store. You can buy these tick tubes at a lot of hardware stores these days. Now, as to their effectiveness, it's been very mixed. In some research studies, they have been shown to really work amazingly, and in other similar studies, they've been shown not to work at all. Now, part of this is going to be, what kind of animals do you have in your backyard? If you have a lot of chipmunks, it's probably not going to work because the ticks will get on the chipmunks and the chipmunks aren't gathering the cotton. So we're not killing the ticks on the chipmunks. If you don't have a lot of chipmunks, if you have a lot of mice, then that's where this could be very, very effective, because every time the mice comes down to its nest that's been lined with this cotton, all the ticks will be killed off of the mice. Are there any other questions? John is back.
I have one more. There are lawn services that offer spray your lawn, eliminate ticks. What is your opinion about that type of strategy?
This has been studied pretty extensively, and it has not been proven to reduce your risk of tick-borne diseases. We can kill a lot of ticks, and they do kill a lot of ticks, but not to the levels that it's actually making a difference from your health standpoint. And with those sprays, we're killing a lot of other things besides ticks. So it's not a strategy that we really recommend.
Thank you.
Now, for people that do it, also, again, think of it as a slice of Swiss cheese. It's not going to work all of the time. So you still need to do all the other strategies. And as I had mentioned earlier, I did a research project down in Westchester County where I was finding ticks in the middle of lawns that had been treated the day before. Because they don't have a long residual, and next time a deer walks across the yard, a tick can drop off and then you have ticks again.
Lawn cut short.
Is any of your research affected by federal funding cuts with
Not yet. Cornell, yes. My particular research, no.
Good. Glad to hear that. I heard from somebody that one of the reasons that Lyme disease is less prevalent in the South is that they host on salamanders, which have a circulating antibody, and the ticks actually go on infected and come off clean. Have you?
So the same species, but they act very differently down south than they do up here. And part of that is because of the heat. So they're less likely to come out of the leaf litter. So it's actually skinks, which is a type of lizard. And the Lyme disease just cannot survive in that cold-blooded body. So yes, they have much less incidences of Lyme disease down there. Now for the blood, interestingly enough, deer actually have something in their serum that will kill the Lyme disease bacteria. So they have no role in Lyme disease at all. Unfortunately, they're also not, wiping out Lyme disease in a lot of ticks because it's the adults that get on, not the young stages. So at that point, they're pretty much done anyway. So deer are not responsible for Lyme disease. They are responsible for ehrlichiosis, which is another disease that is still very rare in New York, but we expect it to expand. But they are responsible for a heck of a lot of ticks, with some numbers ranging from 500,000 to 1.5 million ticks per year per deer.
Wow.
research has shown that the only thing that was ever shown to be effective for protecting human health was to get deer populations down to 8 to 10 per square mile. There is no political will to get deer populations to 8 to 10 per square mile.
Interesting. Gloria had a question about, she asked if you might be able to show the tweezers. Does each end of the tweezer go to a sharp?
See if we can just show this. So basically you want to find tweezers that you think there is no way that's going to get through airport security.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And we
That's
never
helpful.
hand these to children.
Yeah. They're
'Cause we don't
dangerous.
want to be live. These are very easily weaponized. So I'll be at Five Rivers handing them out, but I'm only handing them out to
What
the
day?
adults.
What day will you be there, Joellen?
Let me see if I can find that.
What is the name of the event at Five Rivers?
So it is a Get Outdoors, Get Together Day. And pretty much if they're having a table event like their fall festival, I will be there. So that will be June 14th. It's a Saturday.
Thank you.
This is John Assini again. I have one more question. No Mo May has been something that people have kind of followed. But it would seem to me that if you want to walk across your lawn and it's high, obviously your risk is going to be higher. Is it advisable to keep if you have a lawn, to keep it very, very, very low as far as when you do mow it?
We actually don't have that recommendation. There's no clear research that's been done. We tried to do that research, and it was the only place in New York that very bad tick year that we found no ticks at all within our plots looking at turfgrass height. But I actually came to this position because of my turfgrass background. So I'm always telling people, mow your lawn at 3 inches. And there's nothing that we have found that says you should go any lower than that, strictly for tick purposes.
Okay.
Just mowing is going to help, but they can also be there. As far as no mow May, that has not been shown to increase the risk of ticks. There's been some limited research about that. We also think it's a terrible idea and that you shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
For multiple reasons. I did a whole presentation on that last year.
Excellent. I wonder if next year we might get you again.
The Gardeners Federation of New York, their annual conference is coming up in Albany in June, and I'm actually doing a bee-friendly lawn presentation there this year.
Oh, okay. So is that something just for the Gardeners Association or open to others?
I think that anybody could go to it.
Okay. And it's called Bee Friendly Lawn?
Bee-friendly lawns.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find information about that and put that in the chat.
That'd be great.
Mostly I get invited to places like this. As long as I'm talking about stuff that we're doing. We have our Cornell IPM has a annual conference every year. This year it's going to be, it's called Pests on the Perimeter. So many of the pests that come inside of our house start from the outside. So what can we do outside to stop them from coming inside? That's also in June this year. And it's going to be in Rockland County, but we're also going to have a virtual option.
Okay, good to know.
And that is the 17th.
17th of June?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Gardeners.
So, any other questions for Joellen? This was really good information. I think I'm going to have to watch the whole thing again.
Please. I now want to dub all of you tick ambassadors. Please get this right information out there. There's only one of me, and there is currently 24 of you. So please help spread this information out there. Encourage other people to visit our website and to watch this video. The more people that know about it, the better.
Well, thank you so much. Really interesting and a lot of good information.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So this will be recorded for people like me that want to watch it one more time. And usually in a couple days, we put it up on our website, and go to ecosny.org to find the Zoom recordings. And this is actually our last one for the summer. And then we will start again with the third Thursday of the month in the fall in September. So thanks so much, and hope everybody has a good night. And I'm going to be very careful about ticks now.
Well, good, but go outside.
I don't know. I'm frightened.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Good night.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Bye.